brand new zombie thriller hits the scene in 2024. A terrifying virus is spreading among the population, and anyone who comes into contact with an infected person becomes bloodthirsty and violent. This film is the only zombie movie shot entirely in one continuous take. Romain is driving his sports car, on his way to a party, when a strange woman suddenly crashes into his car. Just as he's about to get out and check on her, the woman climbs into the passenger seat without a word. Then she keeps turning the car key, trying to get Romain to drive quickly. The woman's head is wrapped in bandages, as if she's injured. Seeing this, Romain reaches for his phone to call the police, but then remembers he's just taken some illegal substances. He knows the cops might arrest him too, so he quickly hangs up. The woman is sobbing uncontrollably, leaving Romain at a loss for what to do. He starts the car, planning to take her to the nearest hospital. During the drive, the woman grows more and more agitated, especially when the headlights of a car behind them flash through the rearview mirror. She thrashes about, trying to jump out of the car to avoid the light. Luckily, Romain calms her down, and she sits back in the passenger seat. Suddenly, the woman pulls out a satellite phone. A man's voice comes through, saying that an infected test subject has escaped. For safety, the subject's tongue, teeth, and salivary glands have all been removed. Because the woman couldn't speak, Romain struggled to understand what she was trying to convey, which made her grow increasingly agitated. She starts slamming her head against the car and then grabs a knife from the glove compartment, stabbing herself in the neck. This horrifying scene leaves Romain in shock. While his mind is still reeling, the woman suddenly lunges at him, trying to bite his neck, but she quickly loses consciousness and passes out. At this point, Romain is completely confused. Instead of heading to the hospital, he races back to his own home. Covered in blood, Romain looks at himself in the mirror, then strips off his clothes and runs to the bathroom to take a shower. When he returns to the garage, the woman is gone. Just as Romain starts searching for her, the doorbell rings. It's his girlfriend Anise at the door. Romain, distracted, quickly settles Anise in the living room before continuing his search for the woman. However, after searching the entire house, he still can't find any trace of her. Just as Romain wanted Anise to leave, his two friends also came over. They're here to pick up Romain and Anise for the party. Romain is in no state to party, but his friends keep honking the car horn, almost causing a fight with the neighbors. With no other choice, Romain locks up his home security system and gets in the car with his friends, heading to the party. The entire drive, Romain is distracted, his mind consumed by thoughts of the strange woman. He even starts hearing voices and can't stop his neck from jerking side to side. It was clear that Romain had also been infected by the virus the woman was carrying. At the party, the bright lights overhead make Romain feel extremely uncomfortable, so he finds a mask and puts it on. Romain heads to the bathroom. Looking at himself in the mirror, he finds himself uncontrollably twitching. Meanwhile, in the next room, Anise was chatting with her close friend Julia. Julia surprisingly revealed that she had an affair with Romain and that she was likely pregnant now. Anise thought Julia was joking and didn't take her seriously, so she left the bathroom without giving it much thought. Little did Anise know, as soon as she left, Romain stepped out from the side and began kissing Julia. At that moment, Julia suddenly noticed that Romain's eyes were glowing with a strange light. Alarmed, Romain rushed to a mirror to check, but he didn't see anything unusual. Just then, Romain's phone rang. His father called, informing him that the home security system had triggered an alarm, and Romain needed to return immediately to shut it off. Romain had no choice but to push through his discomfort and make his way down the stairs. But as soon as he reached the first floor, blood started pouring from his nose. The whole person became very dazed under the stimulation of the lights. A friend grabbed Romain, about to say something, but Romain threw him to the ground in a fit of rage and began pummeling him. Julia tried to intervene but was also shoved aside by Romain. The noise was so overwhelming that it felt like Romain's head was about to explode, so he jumped on a nearby scooter and sped home. After successfully disabling the home alarm, Romain found the house in complete disarray. On the floor, he noticed the woman's satellite phone. Following the sound, Romain traced it to the bathroom, where he found the woman sitting in the bathtub, using a tool to dig something out of her neck. Moments later, she extracted a device that was glowing red from her neck. Holding the device, the woman seemed like she wanted to say something to Romain, but by this point, Romain was too terrified to process anything. As soon as Romain stepped out of the bathroom, he saw a group of masked, black-clad figures outside. Not only that, Romain also noticed black-clad figures at his neighbor's house, and they appeared to be carrying a corpse. At that moment, the woman inside the house also began to mutate, her body crawling in a strange and eerie manner. Horrified by everything he was witnessing, Romain realized someone was watching him. In a panic, he bolted out of the house and ran into a nearby cornfield. As he ran, he began to laugh uncontrollably. And then, without warning, started biting his own arm. Just then, a car screeched to a halt in front of him. The speeding car nearly hit Anise, who was still calling Romain's phone, trying to ask why he had betrayed her. Anise got into a taxi, but blood started dripping from her nose, and her body was gradually growing cold. It was clear Anise had also been infected. Julia called Anise, telling her that something terrible had happened at the party and that people were turning violent and terrifying. At that moment, the taxi driver noticed they were being followed. He got out to confront the pursuer, but the man immediately killed him. Terrified, Anise jumped into the driver's seat and slammed on the gas, speeding away from the scene. Halfway down the road, Anise started feeling worse. She got out of the car and began convulsing uncontrollably. Seeing the black-clad figures closing in behind her, Anise forced herself to keep running. As she crossed a set of train tracks, a passing train created some distance between her and the black-clad figures. She tried calling the police, but strangely, no one answered. Anise had no choice but to hide in a nearby bar. When she reached the bathroom, she saw herself in the mirror, completely covered in blood. It turned out that her body had already been pierced by bullets, but Anise felt no pain at all. Suddenly, gunshots rang out from outside the bathroom. Peeking through the door crack, Anise saw the black-clad figures had entered the bar and were slaughtering everyone inside. She quickly jumped out of the bathroom window. As she made her escape, her body began to spasm again. Once she regained control of herself, Anise called her friend Julia. They agreed to meet at a bridge. Along the way, Anise started exhibiting strange behaviors. As she passed through an underpass, she violently attacked a woman she encountered. Anise grew increasingly manic, humming to herself and bouncing around in a giddy, erratic manner. She then approached a man nearby and, without saying a word, tried to take his bicycle. When the man tried to stop her, Anise spat blood in his face, then threw him into the river. Alarms blared in the distance, and helicopters patrolled overhead. It was clear the entire city had fallen into chaos. Before long, Julia met up with Anise. Seeing Anise covered in blood, Julia wanted to take her to the hospital, completely ignoring Anise's strange behavior. By this point, Anise had completely lost her sanity, yanking at Julia's hair. Julia, thinking Anise was just scared, didn't take it seriously and kept trying to comfort her, but Anise only grew more violent. Grabbing Julia by the throat and then sinking her teeth into her shoulder, Julia finally couldn't take it anymore and shoved Anise off the motorcycle. It was only then that Julia realized something was seriously wrong with Anise, so she immediately sped away on the motorcycle to escape. She hadn't gone far when she got a call from her mother. Her mother told her the town had become too dangerous, and that being in a wheelchair, she couldn't evacuate on her own. She begged Julia to come home and help her. Just then, Julia heard Anise screaming behind her, mumbling that she was going to eat her face. Julia didn't dare stop and quickly sped off on the motorcycle to get away. After getting on the elevator in the apartment building, Julia finally let out a sigh of relief. But just as the elevator doors were about to close, Anise came charging toward her. Thankfully, the doors shut in time, but at that very moment, the elevator malfunctioned. Julia tried calling for security, but no one answered. Anise had already attacked the guard. Julia was on the verge of breaking down. Julia's sister upstairs finally heard her cries for help, and just as Julia was about to ask her for assistance, a gunshot rang out, and everything went silent. Julia realized her sister had likely met a terrible fate. At that moment, the elevator suddenly started working again, and Julia rushed toward her home. On the way, she saw numerous disfigured bodies, horribly bitten, which made her even more worried about her family's safety. When Julia finally reached her home, she was horrified to find Anise savagely devouring her mother's body. Terrified, Julia turned and ran. Anise didn't intend to let Julia go either, and followed closely behind. On her way, Julia encountered a black-clad figure. After realizing Julia hadn't been infected, the figure told her to stay put and not move. The black-clad figure began searching the area but didn't spot Anise. Unbeknownst to her, Anise had silently crept up behind her and suddenly bit into her leg. The black-clad figure, knowing she had been infected, removed her mask and told Julia,
On a l'ordre de tuer tous ceux qui ont été en contact direct. Écoute-moi. Toute cette ville n'existe déjà plus. Écoute-moi. Non. Comment tu te sens? C'est pas vrai. Non. T'as des vertiges? T'entends des voix? Est-ce que t'es attiré par la lumière? Si t'as pas avalé leur sang, tu risques rien.
The black-clad woman, believing Julia was still uninfected, handed her gun to her. After telling Julia to turn around, the woman used the gun to end her own life. Julia, who had been crying, suddenly burst into laughter. It was clear the virus inside her had also begun to take over. The city had fallen, and in a desperate move, the government decided to use nuclear weapons to turn everything to ash.